Okay. Yeah, guys. This side Prince. I work as a chapter lead in ING Bank. For we do data analytics. We head the data analytics and the regular reporting for Asia branches. We have around about 9 branches, and we do extensive use of these technologies from a MSBI stack to a Power BI. So I've been experienced in Power BI for so long. I think almost 7, 6, 7 years. That's my personal so-called profile. Um, so let's start. So what I'm going to discuss today is mostly about the Power BI and the way we can use Power BI for our so-called ad hoc reporting. As we all know, we know data engineering stuff, that we know how to get the data and all this stuff. The issue is that what people say is that 90% of work is done in the back end, only 10% shows up, but actually the showing of the reporting, the analytics part, the front end is the major part, that if you cannot present what is back in the back end, it doesn't help people make good decisions. This is where we come up with these so-called as Power BI architecture, so the so-called Power BI ad hoc reporting tool that can help you with a very fast and a very good decision making report dashboards on it. So let's get started with the architecture. Okay. So what is this Power BI architecture? Power BI is part of a MSBI suite, Microsoft suite, where it helps you do a lot of reporting stuff. Starting with so you can define Power BI into 3-tier architecture. The way the first kind is the data sources. You can have n number of data sources across. As you know, Microsoft allows a lot of data sources to be attached to the Power BI as well. Then you have a Power BI desktop. That is a layer where you develop your reports. You can see what you're doing it with the data. You can see what is there. And then it comes to cloud services of Power BI. That is more of your how you display your reports, how you publish your reports, how which all people can see and all that stuff. Then with as we know, the data is being a very sensitive information across the whole organization. We Power BI, it gives you gateways to interact with data, because sometimes people don't let your data go onto clouds and all those services. So they where Microsoft steps in and tells it, okay, fine, guys, you can have your data in your systems, in your sources. We won't publish it on our cloud service, but you can still use our cloud services to show the dashboards and all the stuff. And then comes your how you access the reports, the real stuff. Okay. It tells you where you can have it on your mobile reports. You can have your CEO can see the so-called your KPIs very fast, in a very very fast-paced manner on the so-called mobiles and all that stuff. And it so this is in short is a small architecture of the whole Power BI. Uh, Let me see. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So how do we divide uh, how do we divide this so-called analytics solution? Analytics solution has certain parts and components to it. One is the first is your so-called data layer, where your extraction happens of the real data. And in composite, Power BI gives you Power Query editor to do those things for yourself. Then you have a data modeling. Power BI has its data models also. Then it comes the data storage. Power BI has a very very good engine in terms of the data storage. That is a DAX storage engine, which uses a tabular model. It's a vertex. It summarize it so much comprises your data in such a zip in so much zip that it you can have tons of data without any performance issues as of today. Okay. Then comes the data retrieval. How do you retrieve the data? You have SQLs and those things. In Power BI, you have a DAX query and M queries that we will discuss later on the slides also. Then analysis tool. You have a very good analyzing tool in terms of Power BI also. You can have your Python and R also integrated with Power BI, and you have a lot of visualizations to view those stuff, and can predict a good story, can project a good story out of the whole report. The presentation itself is you have visualizations. That's something we will cover later on the slides also. Then comes how does this Power BI working architecture happens. Okay. You you have you have two halves of the Power BI architectures. One is your upper half, that is more of your cloud services that it gives you. Then the lower half is what where your data resides into systems. Sometimes people don't even use the upper half, they all uses the mainly the lower half, where they have the report server also published within their systems, where they don't even go outside of anything. So it depends upon what kind of stuff you want to do with the Power BI, and the way your data, so-called your data integration, your so-called integrity of your data, so-called confidentiality, which one you want to share on the cloud services, which you don't want to share. That is something you can decide on the way it goes across. Today, the basic topic what we want to discuss is how Power BI is useful in doing a lot of analysis. So we will show you why Power BI is ad hoc why Power BI is what are the use cases for the Power BI being a why do we should we use Power BI for ad hoc reporting. One, Excel is quite an old tool now. Excel doesn't allow integration with a lot of data sources. Others cannot do it, and then it has a you can in Power BI you can connect your data warehouses, you can combine various data sources together. Dax query, being from a business user perspective, is a very easy language, but it's a complex but still an easy language if you do a lot of small analysis and all the stuff. So these are the stuff that you can, why we prefer Power BI to be used across with users. How do you create a report? So it tells you a clear steps, how do you create a Power BI report, how the data integration happens. First is how where your you have to integrate your data into the system in the application. So this is where your data integration happens. Then you have a lot of transformations. People say you people don't get a lot of transformation from Power BI, but I can tell you there is not a single task that I can do it in SSIS that I cannot do it in Power BI from regarding a transformation. So there are ways out of it to do things. There are stuff that you can do it across. So these are the different things you can a lot of transformation that we will see also in the later slides here. People say you can do data modeling. Same data modeling can be done in Power BI as well. You can see I have put a small screenshot of a very small facts and dimensions across. So this is a very small data model, but you can create a big data models as well. um, then you go and define what is your driving, then you define and drive your KPIs, how you want to drive this data out of it. That is something in the later slides. Then the last part is how you put your report and publish the dashboards. Comes the next one. It gives you a very small slide to show how does this Power BI desktop looks like, and where are the stuff from the each gives you how you import data, how you format, how you enrich data, how you set relationships, build your report template, and all that stuff. So this is how the whole simple steps of Power BI, how to create simple reports. Okay, now let's jump into the real stuff of data analysis. Okay, so we'll start with how, how does Power BI do a forecasting. You can do a forecasting in Power BI. A user that doesn't understand so-called algorithms and all this still can do a Power BI forecasting. It's very simple steps. I'll tell you what does Power BI uses as a forecasting model. It uses an exponential smoothing model. uh, it uses two techniques. It's called as ETS AAA and ETS AAAN models. What does ETS stands for? It's an error, transform, uh, uh, error, trend, uh, and the seasonality. Okay, so what does this error, trend, and seasonality means to? Okay, so you know you see there are some businesses where you have a lot of seasonal data. For example, winter's clothing will be much of higher use, much of higher profitability in so-called winter season, as compared to in summer season. So that's something called a seasonality. Maybe it can be quarterly seasonality also. It all depends what kind of seasonality you have it. Okay, so ETS, how does ETS work? So ETS, if you see this models under ETS AAA and AAN, what it predicts that ETS AA, what is AAA and what is AAN means to it. Okay, so error term, what is an error term? It can be additive and a multiplicative. I'll show you later on the formulas across it. Okay, how does it work? So same for the trend term also. It can be additive. It can be of a so-called multiplicative. Even it can be of no trend. It can be a very straight line, streamline. There might be a very flat line that doesn't show any trend across the time series. So and then seasonality comes. Seasonality is one of the major factors to determine which model out of this ETS it will use. So basically what we are going to do, we are going to start with ETS AAN model. So what it tells you, it's actually equivalent to Hall's linear model that we have it. Okay, so you will only can use this model because if you remember I told you ETS XYZ, if you convert it to triple AAN, it tells you it has a error term that can be additive, it should have a train that is additive. See, it cannot have a seasonality data. So if you don't have a seasonality data, then it tends to use this model to do the forecasting prediction. Okay, so it's equivalent to a REMA model that you will see, that auto regressive integrated moving average model. So it follows the same stuff here also. So if you see, I'll give you just an example. It gives you a Google stock. Google stock doesn't have any seasonal impact to the data about the stock prices, because Google is just Google. It doesn't matter whether it's quarterly, whether it's month one or month two, or time period one or time period two, is still the same. So it doesn't have seasonal data. When you don't have a seasonal data, then it tends to forecast with a very straight line. Okay, then comes the ETS AAA model. It's equivalent to a triple exponential smoothing model also. So if you see, uh, uh, for example, the milk production might go up and down due to the seasonal, with respect to dairy farms stuff. Uh, Correct. So that's how it works in the for the seasonal data. Then so you will see sometime peak, sometime very lows. So that's how it works. Let's get into a okay. Now we being in a COVID situation, so I thought this would be a better example to showcase. Okay, if you see this, it is following a double AN model because it doesn't show any seasonality data. Okay, so if you see this data across, what I have done, okay, I have forecasted from the data from January till May 26th or 27th, something like that. So I had that data from the internet, and then we just put it as an active cases per day. On that day, what is the n number of active cases on that day? So if you see the whole forecasting done by Power BI, let me go to the real data. Give me a second. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So now we are on the Power BI report itself. So if you see, you can see this orange line. This orange line depicts the forecasting. So what I did to check my forecasting, whether it works fine or not, what I did, I ignored 6 months. I ignored almost a month of data to see whether where what is being forecasted is actually on the same lines what is being the actual values. Okay, so if you see this, so you can see the upper bound and the lower bound. It tells you about the how much confidence level we have it. So right now I've put it as a confidence level as 95%, so interval, so that at least to make sure that the data stays in this. Because of COVID-19, there are a lot of peaks and a lot of drops. So that is the reason I haven't practiced this. I haven't made this machine learning too many stuff, so that I don't have too much of confidence level. So I've put a bigger confidence interval out there. So how does this works? So I'll just give you an example. Okay, I'll change this forecasting. Okay, I'll change this forecasting confidence interval to 75%. You will see the impact. Okay, see, it got decreased, but still if you see our forecast lines and the real actual lines are actually almost similar. So it when I calculate the percentage of change that is there in between, we call it as RMC, MAP matrices. It shows MAP percentage matrix shows me around about 8% deviation, and I think that is a very good forecasting in that sense. So we can see Power BI is actually able to forecast very closer to the accurate values, to be honest, as long as this values. So I'll explain in next slides what are these values towards MPSC and all those. Okay, give me a second. So I just showed you that forecast length and how does it works. So what it tells you, it can Power BI gives you a so-called sorry, Power BI gives you so many variables that you can play around with. For example, you can play around with what kind of how many months of data you want to see, how many months of forecasting you want to see, or how many years or how many time periods you want to see. And you can always test your model by ignoring certain months. So either you can ignore your months as per your need basis. For example, there are some outliers that you don't want to put into the system, so you can remove those by using this ignore months. But if you have certain but even for testing also, you can use this ignore months, so that at least you can see whether your prediction levels are going properly or not. uh, and this confidence interval level, we have already discussed what is this confidence interval is all about. So so there are two very good accuracy method that you can always use to see whether it's there or not. So one is RMC, that is root mean square error. So if you go ahead and check your actual whatever you okay, let me show you one more thing. uh, it does not only tell you the values, you can see the values also. Okay, so you're just seeing this here, you just right click, okay, show as table. If you show it as table, it tells you, okay, initially there is no forecasting because I asked it to focus from May month. Give me a second, guys. Okay, so if you see, you have a forecasted value from 26th April, because I said started ignoring 1 month from 26th May, so it started forecasting from this value. So if you can see, it's a very close values when you see it around. So that way, you can see your forecasting model is very nearby, and you can use these value to derive this formula. Uh, the percentage, the map percentage. So this is how confidence, you can see, if it's more than 20%, then that's the time you start thinking whether you really want to use this model, or there's some another regression or another statistical model that you want to use it. Now going to the next kind of analysis. How does So Power BI gives you a very interactive reports as well. So you can have a it acts like an application itself, and then you can interact with the report, you can tell something, and it will give you a results back out. So I used a one simple sensitivity report. So what is the sensitivity analysis is? In finance, it is told us how your target target variables are affected with the changes in another independent variables. So what it tells you, it gives you, it is also called as what if analysis. So what if you increase this person, what if you decrease that person, what if it is uh, change in this numbers. So I'll just give an example. For example, you had a what example I have put it across. There's a seller who sells it widget at 1,000, and it has some transactions, maybe 100 transaction. What it sees, for every 1,000 views on her site, it shows her it gives her almost around about 10% increase or 5% increase, just a sample. Okay, so what if she goes do and this sensitive analysis, she can always see, okay, fine, for example, if I increase the number of views on my site, it can increase my transaction, it can increase my sales. For example, if I increase it to 20%, then it increases my sales by another 10%, something like that. So these are the stuff you can do with Power BI also. I'll show you this, how this is sensitivity. If you can see the formula, it tells you a change in the dependent variable and a parameter and a state variable, that gives you the real output of the sensitivity. Okay, it has okay, before I go through this, I'll show you a small demo to tell you across. Give me a second. Okay, so just take an example of a any small retail shop. Okay, so what it tells that its current profit, previous year profit was 10 million. He wants to forecast a profit to a 14 million. Okay, but in the meantime, he still wants his desired profit to change. So he tells, no, let's put a desired profit that changes. Maybe I want around about uh, so-called 20 million profit. Okay, so he wants to know what should I change in my cost price to show me that it gives me a profit of 20 million. So for example, so cost price has to decrease, then only your profit goes increases. So what it tells, if he changes his cost price by 20%, he can gain 100% of his desired profit. Correct, because that's a control he can have it. And if you see the below ones, I'm these above ones are with the single parameters, the below ones are with the multiple scenarios. For example, if he changes cost price by 20%, so if you see, if you see this color coding, what it this color coding tells you, this is simple way of showing people that these are the green ones are the ones that can meet your targets, what are your desired profit is all about. Okay, so for example, if he needs a 40 million, just a sample, okay, he wants to increase the profit to maybe 24 million. So only if he only does an increase, a decrease of 30% cost price, then only he can achieve it, or he has to do a both percentages, maybe a 20% decrease in cost price but a 20% increase in selling price also can get him that target. So this is a very interactive way of Power BI using all this stuff. So going back to the slides, okay, so people will say, what is the difference between sensitivity and scenario analysis? It's a very basic. Scenario is the one that happens in the market. Okay, scenario that has the external factors attached to it. It doesn't only have you cannot control those factors. For example, this sensitivity, you just you're predicting on the basis of what is there, changing the each state of the variable across different values. But scenario is kind of a market. Maybe a market is changing. For example, this COVID situation came in. That doesn't matter whether it's your so-called you won't cannot have a COVID as a under sensitivity analysis. So these are the stuff that is a difference between a sensitivity and scenarios. For if you go by the examples, what is put out there. So someone used the manufacturing, he started having a manufacturing company for certain things. So for him, he can play with cost price, selling price, so-called demand and all this stuff, but he cannot predict those scenarios tells you from a very from a best case scenario to a worst case scenario. So that's what is the difference between sensitivity and a scenarios. Within sensitivity, you can have a different values of variables to show the end results. So that's how. But you can see even these kind of reports are very possible in Power BI. So these are very called as a very interactive reports where people can play around and still get the desired result from that reports. Okay, now going. So these are some of the advantages as well as the approaches that someone should keep in mind while doing this. For example, sensitivity analysis requires every dependent variable be studied in detailed manner. But for scenario, it's more of a different scenario what you can do to win a certain particular situation. Same, if you go by fact checking, sensitivity analysis helps company determines the likelihood of the failure of a given variables. But when it comes to scenario, it more of forecasting the future events. It's trying to see what will happen in future that can impact the whole performance of the company. So for certain things, like for example, this COVID situation, no one predicted that COVID can come and impact businesses in such a big manner. So that is a scenario. Whereas reporting with sensitivity is more of a percentages increase and decrease of the stuff. Okay, let me go to the next one. Okay, so I showed you already this what kind of different studies you can work it with, the sensitivity, how the profits can up and down and all those scenarios. So so it can be used within finances also, where you can do budgeting and all this stuff, but that is a different use cases that you can put it across. So it's just showing the power of the Power BI, what can be done and what cannot be. Okay, now comes the real magic of Power BI. So Power BI allows lot of analytical toolings to be attached to it, like Python, like R. So you can imagine, because sometimes people say Python and R is more difficult to be in interactive reports, or more so-called you need a lot of coding skills from a Python perspective and R perspective to get into the so-called making interactive pages and all those stuff. And the display reporting graphs are also less interactive or less attractive in a sense as compared to Power BI. So you can combine these two together to make your analytical solutions. For example, you can allow power of the Python, and it doesn't only allow Python and R, it allows machine learning. It has text analytics also embedded within the Power BI. The only thing is that you have to be on a premium membership to access this text analytics and machine learning. For Python and R, you can just be a normal user to access those things. So what does this Power BI allows you to do? Even you will see very less visualization on the on those dashboards. But if you go, you can have a very custom visualization, and it's all free. So you can see there are multiple levels of visualization where you can define your KPIs. It's a well defined structure out there that can be used to do all these things. uh, Now let me go back to the Power BI. Okay, give me a second. Okay. Okay, so what we did, I did a very small example of a Power BI using a prediction model for using a multilinear regression model. Okay, so what I did, I just used some sales data from a so-called companies when they put up their advertisement against YouTube, TVs, radios, and newspapers. So I use that simple data set to show how does the two things can be interacted. Okay, so you can always use, because Python and R are better tools to do data cleansing, data massaging, data so-called all those statistical model, machine learning modules that are very, very strong parts of Python and R that can be used. And then you can append that result set of those, or you can use those so-called data set to Power BI and DAX to complete the interactive dashboard that we can build it now. So for example, okay, give me a second. Yeah. So give me a second. Okay, yeah. So it shows you the whole uh, machine learning model of a linear regression. So I just did a so-called I just did a test and train and do the linear regression and got those coefficients values out of it. But you can straight away use this into Power BI as well. Give me a second. Okay, so I'll just go and edit the query. Okay, so if you see this small demo, uh, okay, what I did, I run these Python scripts. Just I'll show you the same Python script that I showed you on the Jupyter notebook. The same Python script, I ran it on my Power BI itself. So it gives me all these tables, the outputs of the Python. So I can use this now, power of Python and R, to to put a good interactive dashboard. Okay, so it's a very easy stuff. You can just transform it with the, you can run this Python script and you can get it across. Okay, uh, I'll share a link in the YouTube video to show how to use those Python scripts in that. Okay, uh, now coming back to my dashboard report, same thing. What I did again was with the what if analysis, what if report analysis. You can input certain values. So I'll just show you a sample data out of this. Okay, so what it tells you simple data on January's, what is the amount of investment you did in, and what was the output on the sales for particular products. So these are in millions and these are in dollars. So a certain thing like that. So what we did, I just did a okay, coming back to this. So if you know, linear regression has a simple equation of intercept plus your change in each of coefficient values with respect to the independent variables, and then you can predict the actual value, and it gives you okay. So this equation, now I'll put it as part of the of Power BI. So what I did, I read the regression model, but I use this equation in DAX. So that's how I've combined two very wonderful analytical tools together to get the output. Okay, so the same equation I showed you already. Now how I can use the same to do this regression equation, how we can use this convert this equation into the DAX. So DAX is a very powerful power query language which depicts a lot of stuff. You can do a lot, even the whole of the modeling can be done here, but that is for sometime later. It would be very advanced versions. Those that's something I'll cover in, maybe I can share the link later on to show how the DAX can be used to do those. But to show just a sample where Python can be used, and I've used a very simple example. There are multiple, I think there are thousands of use cases that you can see it across in the outside world to combine these two to do a good interactive dashboard. So what it tells, so it gives you the coefficient values for each of the component, and it sums it with the input values, so you can see what is the return you will be getting across. Okay, so for example, I'll just show it in front of you. Okay, I go ahead and told, okay, I think my coefficient value with TV is the most, so I think I should invest more in TV ads to get me the more values in the predictive values. So I change this one. So I change this one. It tends to change the value of the my predicted sales. So that's how good Power BI is. So you can imagine, people using this dashboards to do a lot of their business decision making, to get in onto the real on the real output of the values. Okay, uh, you can use Power BI in a lot of more other stuff, like very interactive dashboard for loans and all those stuff in financial markets. You can have a lot of you can use R's and all those equipments together. So you can, what I showed you is what visual from a so-called data massaging and statistical model and all this. So you can always use Python for the visuals also. If you think Python visual would be more good in sense, or you don't find a visual that can suffice your requirement, you can always use Python visual also. You can integrate Python visuals also with the Power BI. So that's how the whole of the scenario works in the in Power BI. And there are multiple examples. I can cover only these many in short time frame. I hope you would have got certain stuff, certain knowledge, or a certain areas where you guys can work it out. So uh, that's it from me. I think we can go towards questions and answers.
Yes, Prince, thanks a lot for your talk. I think we have time for, since we're a little bit running out of time, we have time for one question. I think the biggest one is what ING is using Power BI for, especially for data engineering, and which kind of data do you use?
Okay. So as I told you, we are doing a lot of interactive dashboards. So we do a lot of variance analysis within our Power BI stuff. So what we do as part of our reg reporting area, we use Power BI for toolings like someone has to do a variance analysis between months. How does the trend is happening from the balance sheet perspective? What are the lending products, or which are the clients that are very much useful, or which are the uh, more uh, uh, more profitable clients, which are the clients we should focus more area on. Those kinds of dashboards we can use it for from a Power BI perspective to show to the clients. And the data, where it sits in as part of data engineering, is that every report needs the data across. So these are the stuff where it comes where we get the data from our systems, and we integrate Power BI into our report servers, and our reports are not shared beyond. It has a lot of security protocols, so we don't use any of the cloud services. We all are on the so-called in-house services. I
Okay.
hope it answers the questions.
Yeah, so I hope as well for Shiman. So in the YouTube channel, we saw a lot of a lot of more questions, but because of time, we don't. Unfortunately, we don't have time for it. But if Prince is okay with it, we will share his contact details. So if you really want to get answered, you can get in contact with him. Having that said, Prince, thanks a lot for joining us from Singapore to give